Welcome! You are listening to the Overseas Life Redesign podcast, where you'll hear fun, relaxed, and inspirational interviews with people who are really living the dream. I'm Dawn Fleming, an attorney turned alchemist, and your host for the show, coming to you from the tropical island paradise of Isla Mujeres, Mexico. This show was created for courageous souls willing to step out of their comfort zone and design a new way of life. You'll gain inspired midlife wisdom from those who have done it as we share experiences, strategies, and offer practical steps you can take to redesign your life overseas. Listen and you'll believe if you can dream it, you can achieve it. Well, I am honored today to have a very special guest. I have Robert Nelson with me today. He lives in Puerto Vallarta and is author of the best-selling book, Boomers in Paradise, Living in Puerto Vallarta, one of my favorite cities in Mexico. He also wrote Adventures Abroad, The New American Expat Generation, and he's an expert on expatriation. Robert has lived in Germany, Turkey, and Greece, and has traveled over a dozen countries on 3 continents. A marketing and media professional for over 40 years. He was also an adjunct professor of advertising at San Jose State University for 10 years. His wife, Felice Arden Nelson, has lived in London, was an expat film producer for a lot of years. And so she and Robert are founders of the Expat Guide to Living in Mexico, an online magazine to help make your life in Mexico the very best it can be. Welcome, Robert. Thank you for taking the time to join me today. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Well, wow, you've kind of traveled the globe quite a bit and lived in different places. I'd love to hear your perspective on Mexico compared to other places you've been.
Well, I came to Mexico for the first time in 1976. When I lived in Denver at that time, where it gets a little chilly during the winter. And I recall coming here in January, and I looked through all the travel brochures, and Puerto Vallarta looked like exactly the kind of place that would remedy all the snow in Denver. And back in those days, Puerto Vallarta was a little town.
Yeah.
There was a little 2-lane asphalt road from the airport, which was quite small at that time, to downtown. And I think probably 40,000 people lived in Puerto Vallarta at that time. Yeah. And now, of course, there are 300,000 that live just in the city and surrounding suburbs of Puerto Vallarta. And then the Bay of Banderas in total is about 500,000. So big changes. But my wife and I absolutely loved Puerto Vallarta, and we had been back to Mexico probably at least a dozen times before finally deciding to move here in 2002. And most of the time we came to Puerto Vallarta, where we sampled, the Riviera Maya, and of course Cabo San Lucas and a few other places in Mexico. But always wanted to come back to Puerto Vallarta. We love the setting of the city with the dramatic backdrop of the mountains, and of course the largest bay in all of Mexico, the Bay of Banderas, and the tropical foliage, and of course the great climate. Of course, we had never lived here during the summer. We had always visited during the winter. And I remember as a kid going back to Wisconsin. I had grown up in Wyoming, which is a very arid place, and going back to Wisconsin to visit relatives and how humid it was during the summer. And I was a little worried about Vallarta because, as you know, the coastal cities of Mexico can be a little humid during the summer, to say the very least. But when we moved here in 2002, we actually purchased a home here in 2001 in Mismaloya, which is about 7 miles south of Puerto Vallarta on the Mismaloya Cove. And we decided, though, in 2002 to move down here full time because I was a brand consultant at that time and didn't frankly make any difference where I lived. Mm-hmm. And as long as I had an internet connection and an international airport, it was fine. So we decided about a little over a year after purchasing a home down here to move down here full time. And so we came down. We had furnished a house, and we basically got rid of just about all of our furniture. We gave it to our son, but we still brought enough things down that the audio equipment, electronics, that kind of thing, which is very expensive to buy down in Mexico.
Yes.
And so in December of 2002 was the first time that I moved to Puerto Vallarta. And unfortunately, my wife passed away in 2006, and I moved from Misvaloya to downtown Puerto Vallarta, actually a little on the north side, Las Gaviotas neighborhood, and lived there. And then in 2009, decided to move back to the Bay Area, where I had lived for almost 30 years, which is where my son and daughter lived.
San Francisco.
And
You're talking about, right?
yes, San Francisco. Yes, that's right. We lived in the San Jose area. And so I moved back there, and I had been teaching when I was consulting, living there before. I had been teaching at San Jose State University, so I went back there. I had a friend who was actually the head of the journalism and mass communications department, and he asked me to come back and teach. So I came back and taught for about 5 years at San Jose State in journalism and mass communications, primarily as an advertising professor. And that was basically my experience. Professional experience was actually starting out in radio, and worked in radio for, I guess almost 10 years or so before moving into marketing and advertising and public relations and all of that. My specialty was branding and marketing communications. But I did that, and then I had remarried. I got remarried in 2009, about 6 months after I moved back, and I married Felice. And I had known her actually, for a long time. I think I met her for the first time in 1979 because she was a Midwestern sales manager for Ms. Magazine.
I saw that. One of my favorites.
Yeah, and I was director of communications at Samsonite Luggage in Denver, and we met. She was trying to sell me advertising, and I was resisting, of course. And then, but I really liked her. She was a really nice person, and we always got along well. And I then moved to California, and she moved to London, and we lost touch. And about, I guess, within the year before I moved back, I did one of those things as you get older where you try to find people on Facebook and the internet, and I found her, and
awesome.
We resumed our acquaintance, and it kind of led down the road to getting married. So we're very happy, and when we're there, we started we decided to look into the whole idea of focusing on the expat market. Mm-hmm. and having lived in Mexico already for 7 years, that made sense. And Felice had been an expat in London for 7 years, so I had a lot of experience in that area, and I'd lived in other countries also. And so we started expatsofmexico.com in 2016, the fall of 2016. Okay. And we've been just going right along since that time, and we've got a audience that's primarily consists of expats who live in Mexico, of course, and sure. And then lots of people from the United States and Canada who are interested in living in Mexico, as well as people from around the world, United Kingdom, a lot of the English language speaking countries tune in to our site, if you will. But that's kind of my history in terms of getting down to Puerto Vallarta. But right now we live in the just east of the hotel zone, about 3-4 blocks from the beach, and are just enjoying it. And by the way, the humidity during the summer just doesn't bother us at all.
Well, I think it's a little bit drier on the Pacific coast. than it is on our side over in the Caribbean. So
Oh, it is, and it's also we get cooler because of the mountains. We get cooler during the winter than you do. Like, typically in the morning, this time of year, it's like in the mid 60s or so
yeah.
in the morning. So you have to put on a little light jacket.
Hmm.
When you go out for a walk, we usually go walking along the river or walking along the beach every morning. So it gets a little chilly. But yeah, over in the Yucatan and Quintana Roo, it's it's pretty warm year round.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it is. It's. I was sitting. I don't even own a blanket. I was sitting with a beach towel over my legs because it was. And I'm from Minnesota, so I'm a
Oh
cold weather
gosh.
girl, but I haven't been there for a very long time. But yeah, my legs were cold, and I had to put on pants last week actually, which was
Oh my gosh. Shocking.
so kind of funny, yeah. But I don't mind. It was actually, we were hearing it was like 35 degrees in Miami or something this past.
Yeah. Yeah. Florida. It's like, why would you move to Florida? It's cold there.
Right. Yeah, we figured that out.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, no, Bay of Banderas is beautiful. I don't know if you saw my bio, but we left San Diego in 2010 and sailed 5,000 miles through the Panama Canal. And so we actually spent quite a bit of time in La Cruz. We had some
Uh-huh.
sailor friends there. That was a lovely town. And also the Bay of Banderas. And then we were back there probably in 2017 or so for a week, a little incentive trip, and finally got to go to Yalapa. We didn't get to go there when we were sailing.
Sure. Yeah.
For
All of the South beaches in Vallarta are wonderful.
yeah, but it's
You can
so
take a
beautiful.
water taxi over there and go over
Yeah,
there and snorkel or scuba or whatever you want to do, or just picnic. It's a wonderful place. By the way, La Cruz, when I lived here in part of 2009, La Cruz was just a tiny little fishing village there, and they had just built the marina as I was leaving. And when we moved back, we drove over there for they had some sort of fiesta going on there. I was so surprised
really
at
grown.
how, oh yeah, it's become a very upscale neighborhood.
I bet. Yeah, I could see where that would be. We spent Thanksgiving at Philo's, who I understand has passed since then, but it was a really hopping spot for the expats, particularly the sailing community, and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
fun
Well,
place.
it's not many areas in Mexico that have two major marinas.
No, it's yeah, as far as sailing goes, that's definitely a destination for sure. If not swallowing the hook, as we call it, at least stopping there for a while. In
Yeah.
fact, that's exactly what happened. We took over our slip in Los Angeles after we bought our boat from a couple who had these great dreams about sailing the world, and they got as far as La Cruz. And that's where they had stayed. So they had been
Well, it's
there
a
for
great area.
4 years, I think,
Yeah,
because we
yeah.
bought our boat in 2006, and that was 2010, and that's as far as they got on their sailing trip. And they were loving life. And we didn't meet them; we had just heard about them because they were the previous inhabitants of our slip, and then ended up doing the Baja Haha, if you're familiar with that, the big joint
Yes,
sail.
yes,
Yeah, they had done it in
exactly.
2006, I guess it was. And because we couldn't take their slip till October, and then yeah, 4 years later we actually got to meet them in person. So it was kind of fun to meet the legends,
Sure.
that had come before you. So anyway, well, I'd love to talk a little bit about your book, the baby boomers.
Sure.
Living in Paradise. Tell me how that came about, and what's transpired. When did you release that? How long has that book been out?
Well, it's been out since 2008. The
Oh, okay. So
fall. It was published in 2000. Still selling, but we
I
had,
bet.
yeah. But yeah, the idea I got was that many of the people that I've known in Vallarta are the baby boomers age range.
Mhm.
And but I also, as I was doing all the interviews and researching the book, I discovered that they're not all baby boomers. There are a lot of folks here that are not baby boomers, but the ones that were baby boomers, which was revelatory to me, were the fact that they had moved to Vallarta at a generally young age. They didn't move when they were in their 60s. They were, Maria O'Connor, who passed away, unfortunately, in the last year and a half or so, who happened to be one of my really good friends here. She moved here from Chicago when she was 25 years old. And she got a law degree and became very fluent in Spanish and developed a very nice business practice here in the real estate industry. And, her whole story is in the book about how she was on a cold winter day, had just washed her hair and stepped outside and said, "Nah, I don't think so. I think I'm going to go to Puerto Vallarta." And she had considered a number of places, Spain and Mexico and a few other places, but she was drawn to Puerto Vallarta, as many of us are, and came and never left. And she, as I said, passed away about a year and a half ago in her mid 50s or so. But yeah, there are a lot of stories like that. But I find, and I'm sure you find this too, expats are absolutely some of the most interesting people in the world.
For sure.
There are so many people, a lot of people just think, oh gosh, did you have the money to live in the United States? Is that why you're living in Mexico? Or oh gosh, you don't like the president. That's why you moved to Mexico. No, we moved to Mexico because we love Mexico. We love the people. We love the weather, depending upon where you want to live. And there are lots of things we love about it, but we also love the adventure.
We'll be back in a moment.
Isla Mujeres is a Caribbean jewel off the coast of Cancun. Castilito del Caribe warmly invites you to enjoy our spectacular oceanfront villa located in the heart of El Centro and a short walk to Playa Norte, which is ranked one of the top 10 beaches in the world. With an ocean view of crystal clear turquoise waters overlooking both the Caribbean and Cancun city skyline, we offer a fabulous location for you to enjoy all the peace and tranquility you're looking for on vacation, while also taking in all the excitement the island has to offer, with activities either in walking distance or a golf cart day excursion away. Please visit CastilitoCaribe.com, www.CastilitoCaribe.com. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Is it time to go? Are you starving for adventure and new experiences? Ready to lower your living costs and upgrade your quality of life? Do you long for the freedom to live anywhere with the economic satisfaction of earning in paradise? Imagine waking up in paradise every day saying, "Pinch me, is this real?" You can live a happier, healthier, and more joyful life. Don't know where to start? Then grab our free Paradise Checklist to begin dreaming again and start defining your paradise. It's waiting for you at paradisechecklist.com. Welcome back to the Overseas Life Redesign podcast. Thank you so much for being here, and we invite you to subscribe if you like what you hear.
People I find that are expats are very adventurous people. And the other thing that we definitely know is that expats are, certainly the expats in Mexico, where we have demographic information from our readers, they're very upscale. And they're very well educated. Lots of people with master's degree or higher live here just because they just love living in Mexico. And the stories that populated Boomers in Paradise were people from all walks of life, from all areas of the country. A few Canadians were in the book also, and but they all shared one commonality, and that was just absolutely falling in love with Puerto Vallarta. And I don't think there was anyone in the book that just decided that, put a pin in the map and said, oh, I'm moving to Puerto Vallarta. Most of the people had visited here quite often, and were just kind of itching for the day where that they could move here full time. And some were just one of the Crystal Frost, who was one of the stories in Boomers in Paradise, was clearly one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life. This woman was just crazy. What a background. And spent time in prison in Colombia.
Wow.
For selling drugs. She was trying to make some money to finish her education. And she worked as a model in South America for 10 years. And she worked in the film industry for a while. And she was director of marketing for, I think, a hotel chain in the West. And then, she moved down here, and she's fluent in Spanish. And then she got her degree in Eastern medicine. And does massage and acupuncture, and now she owns a organic restaurant in Versailles, which is one of the northern areas from the downtown area, and it's become very successful, and also has helped a number of coffee manufacturers, coffee growers, market their products, with their marketing background on that. But really, really fascinating people. But I think I mentioned to you that I'm working on a new book that is going to be an update to Boomers in Paradise that I'm going to be releasing this fall. Okay. And it's going to be focused on Puerto Vallarta, just like Boomers in Paradise. But it's not going to be focused purely on baby boomers. It's going to be focused just on expats. Okay. And the stories of people who moved here, and it's not going to include just Americans or just Canadians. It'll be Argentinians, it'll be Germans, it'll be people from different countries that have decided to move here and sink some roots in the ground and around the Bay of Banderas. So it'll be definitely an update from that, and I'll bring all the information up to date. There'll be a survey that we're doing now. Actually, a lot of the results from the survey that we're doing with expats in Mexico, and then we'll pull out specifically also the people who participated in the survey that are living in the Puerto Vallarta area, to show specifically what's the responses for the people who live in the Bay of Banderas area. So it should be hopefully an interesting book. I'm enjoying doing it, and I certainly love doing the interviews. So
I'll and me both.
I'll let you know. Now, you've got a book too that's coming out, right?
I do. Yep. March 29th is my release date. And so I'm fast and furious in pre-launch mode. And we'll be happy to shoot you a copy if you
absolutely.
But I just loved telling the stories as well. I'm curious to hear from you, Robert. Are most of these folks, are they first-time expats, or I know it's probably a mix, but what by and large would you say the majority are first-time expats, or have they lived other places and we're like, oh no, Puerto Vallarta is it? Or what are you finding in your community?
The majority of them are first-time expats. Okay. There are a couple that have lived in other countries. And then have moved to. One had lived in Colombia and then moved to this area. So there'll be a few of those. But and then I think the one of the more interesting stories. I haven't done the interview. I've just done a pre-interview right now with a couple that she's from Mexico and he's from Argentina. but he had his own television cooking show in Buenos Aires. So he's
How fun.
quite a big personality. So I'm looking forward to that interview.
I bet. I bet. No, yeah. That's in fact that's why I wrote the book. Really, it was to share so many of these amazing stories,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
were just, and again, all walks of life, finding that as well. And you certainly do have the more well-heeled crowd that are just, wanting to simplify and have a little bit higher quality of life and not so many financial demands. But you do have the folks. I have a friend here on the island that is really, her market is to serve more of those folks that are trying to live in the U.S. on Social Security alone. And it's dang near impossible to be
Oh,
able to
yes, it is.
live
Yeah,
well. And you can
absolutely.
live pretty darn well down here on a Social Security.
Oh, absolutely. Well, of course, it depends about where you live.
Sure.
Vallarta and all the international resort cities are more expensive, of course. But still, compared with, for example, the San Francisco Bay Area, where I'm from, Vallarta, generally, cost of living across the board is about 60% less than living, for example, in the San Jose area. And
Yeah.
of course, the biggest component of that is housing, is California, of course, if you've lived there, is,
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of a little expensive. Yeah, and getting worse. So it's the whole affordability. But one of the couples in my new book, that I'm going to be interviewing, I've done a pre-interview with them, moved here because it provided them with the opportunity to retire early. And I think that's a real motivation for a lot of people also. It's
Mhm.
not that, in a lot of these people can afford to retire in the US, but it would mean working another 10 years or so to do that. And this couple, I think he's 58, she's 55, she's from France,
Okay.
and he's originally from Canada. And they're both in the information technology industry. And they just looked at each other about a year ago or so and said, hey, another 10 years of this? I don't know. And made that decision to look at their bank accounts. And they had been to Puerto Vallarta. And actually, they went to several different locations in Mexico to kind of try it out, which is really the MO of many people,
Sure.
to find out, kind of what's the best place for them. But they fell in love with Vallarta. They bought a house and moved down here. And gosh, they've got a great life now. They've got motorcycles that they run around town and up into the mountains and all sorts of places. And they go snorkeling and scuba diving all the time. But they still, although they're not working, they're still, doing some computer stuff and things that kind of like a hobby almost now. But there's no pressure really to report to any company or any boss, or if you have a business, have that responsibility to worry about whether they're going to survive another year or not. So they're really happy. They're very happy people, and that's the other thing. I don't run into, quite frankly, many dour, unhappy expats, and if you do, they don't stay here that long. They move back to the United States. So
Sure.
we have all the happy ones.
Oh, that's true. I find that too. So one of the things I talk about in my book is sort of the whole phenomenon of redefining retirement, right? I mean, back in the day, you'd retire at 65, and if you were lucky, you might get 10 more years before that's it, right? End of life. And with so many folks living to 100 and really being healthy, we're finding, ending work is not what retirement means anymore. So a lot of them are this reinvention, this reset. Can you talk a little bit about that in Puerto Vallarta?
Well, I think I'm a prime example of that.
Yeah.
I'm 78 years old.
Oh, God bless you.
I'm still going strong. And, I run expats in Mexico, and Felice runs expats in Mexico marketing. So she handles not only our media sales, but also she was a many years in media sales. So in her last focus, when she was working for the Bay Area News Group in San Francisco, was the real estate market. So, which is plentiful. Expats are heavily involved in the real estate market in Mexico. So she is focused on those people. But we certainly don't intend to retire. I mean, I don't know what we'd do. I mean, we're just the kind of people that need to be busy.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean, working 60 hours a week like we used to.
Right.
It means basically doing the things you love.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, my daughter is a podcaster too. She works full time for Cisco Systems.
Okay.
In the San Jose area, but she has a blog called Love What You Love. So she talks to all the disparate group of people from all over about whether they're working full time and doing a hobby, or whether they just gave up the job they hated and finally decided that they wanted to do what they love. But I love doing what I do. I love writing. I always have loved writing and being in the media business. I started out in the media business before I moved to the corporate side and worked for many companies. It gives me. I don't work that hard. My afternoons are mine, but my mornings, I work and we run a business and provide, I think, a good experience in a community for expats who live in Mexico, as well as those who are planning to move here or considering moving here. I'll just continue doing it until I can't do it any longer.
Right. Well, the old saying, do what you love, you never work a day in your life.
That's
right?
Exactly right. That's so true. And some of us are fortunate in finding our way in our careers and our life, that we were able to get some congruency between what you're good at and what you love to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to do that, and I had a very happy career, starting in radio and then moving into marketing, and it was a good experience. And now I'm doing what I really love to do, writing books and running an online magazine. So it all works out, and being able to do that in paradise, how fantastic is that, right?
Right, for sure. Well, I don't want to keep you, Robert. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to add before we sign off?
I don't think so. I think I've talked long enough.
Okay, well, your book is coming out, so you can get your words of wisdom in there. I guess folks can. I'll make sure we put a link to both your expat guide to living in Mexico and also your book. If there's any other contact information you want me to list, we'll go ahead and list that in the show notes. But I am very thankful that you joined me today, and look forward to a continued conversation after this.
Thank you, Dawn.
All right. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
This episode of the Overseas Life Redesign podcast was brought to you by our sponsors. Thanks for tuning in. Did you love this episode of the Overseas Life Redesign podcast? Then please subscribe to our show and leave us a nice review. It's very much appreciated. We invite you to visit paradisechecklist.com and download our free Paradise Checklist to start your journey. We'd also love for you to become part of our Claim Your Dream Life community. Thank you for listening.